July the 18th, 1991. I'm just checking to make sure this is recording.
I asked two people to come here just so I wouldn't talk to an empty room. So I'm awfully glad to see all of you. That's right.
So put that in the paper. How's the crowd?
This book is a ledger that was kept by the Rockefeller store in Germantown. And the store was formerly where Peter Fingar's office is now, right on that turn. And I brought some maps that Lily had given me, and I thought maybe afterwards you'd like to look at these and see what we are. This is the turn right in the village, and our little village here, and our store. And I always say our little store, but I was corrected on that. It was a very large store, and it's right there. So if you have time and you'd like to look at these, I'd be glad to have you. Now this book in some way got into the possession of Dr. Willis Lasher. How he got it, I don't know. And he was all for the Lashers. Nobody else lived here except Lashers, you know that. And he wrote this letter to be kept in here for anyone desiring, perhaps foolishly, that doesn't build us up, does it? To perpetrate the history of Germantown, this ledger may be of inestimable value, but should be cataloged by our library. It is, in fact, an authentic diary naming the early citizens as they bought and the prices that they paid in this store. It even shows the large amount of liquor, and this I just dispute. This is not in this book. I don't know where he got that was consumed, especially during the holidays and harvesting. And the material purchased for the galley of the harvest house, a vessel used to transport packages and goods. Edward Rockefeller's store was located on the present site of the Dr. Henry's office, and that takes us back a low, flat-roofed, two-story yellow building with a double-deck porch was extending across the entire front of the building. From being a general store, it was also the post office for years located there. While the room boarding the street was associated, Albert Klein was also the village barber and situated in this building. So that building was the grocery store. It was the barber shop. It was the post office. And have I skipped anything, Helen? Glad you folks made it. No,
And the liquor store.
well, let's put that in the shadow. He says we're all a bunch of drinkers, but I'm 2/3 of the way through this book, and I haven't found any evidence of that. Now, this book is a wonderful way to trace the genealogy, and it covers 1874 and 1875, and it's really something. And the people in charge felt that it wasn't fair to let everybody mill through this. So they were having this copy, and people can use that to look for members or whatnot. And then if they really want to see where it's mentioned, they can go to this. But it won't stand too much handling. Now, every day is noted. This is the name of the people that buy and what they buy. I don't understand his system. These numbers refer to another book, and each one of these people have a book, and they must take it in and be written up in his book, because every once in a while they come in and they want the books coordinated to keep the prices together, and they do keep the records correct. Now, when a person comes, you sign their name, you sign their number, and down here you put what they bought. Now, if you could see the trouble in keeping the Rockefellers straight, it's Philip H. Rockefeller. It's Philip H. Rockefeller Jr. It's Philip H. Rockefeller North. It's Philip H. Rockefeller South. That is one. Then there's Jake Moore, I think it is, and there's young Jake Moore. And I would hate to tell you what it is to follow this thing through. I had no trouble with that. I just copied what's in here and let it go. But it takes quite a while. Now, every once in a while, somebody forgets their book. And right across here is written, no book. I know that. Now, when I sit down with this, I write their name, get the number, put the date. You have to put whether it's debtor or creditor. And then you put what you bought. Now, big purchases of many of the men are 2 ounces of tobacco for 10 cents. And they all smoke. Believe me, they smoke. But when I first got this book, I couldn't understand how these foreigners could come in here 2 and 3 times a day. I thought, my goodness, how did they handle that? Well, they all live right around the store. They open their door and they can go across the street, so they buy another 2 ounces of tobacco. But it's lots of fun. And what I'm going to do is only talk informally with you about these things. And if you get tired of it, just raise your hand and I can stop. But I spend hours with this, believe me. You find out a lot of things about this. First off, you're interested in the food, and not all their food is purchased here. There has to be some other area where they buy it. But I have noticed molasses is a very, very strong article for their diet. They buy it by the gallon and half gallon, and they're in every other day buying it. And I'm sure they're not making liquor. They're having that for their food. They eat a lot of buckwheat flour. They have mackerel and more mackerel. They're fish eaters. Now, whether this is cured or what, I don't know, but I do know that some of it is fresh and some of it is smoked from what they say about it. Very, very cheap. They have codfish, and they have that quite a bit. They have herring, of course, that's right here. They have sturgeon. And the fish enters their diet very frequently. Now they had apples, they had sweet potatoes, they had lobster, and they had it canned. And I thought, my goodness, $4 or $5 a can? Boy. Well, theirs cost 2 cans for 50 cents. So they had a lot of tea and coffee, but bought in small quantities. Their tea was either 1/4 of a pound or 1/2 a pound, and generally the coffee was 1/2 a pound. Cheese. They were big cheese eaters. They had pounds of cheese. They had cheese when they stopped in the store, cheese and crackers, 5 cents a piece, and they ate the cheese there. And they had a lot. They had a great deal of rice. They ate many pounds of raisins. They had pork and peanuts. Now, that was a well-rounded diet, and they were good feeders. Their spices were nutmeg, cinnamon, and cloves. That was listed here. Now, they also sold medicine. This was a store to answer all purposes. And the medicines as I found them, were worm killers. Now, my father was not even born yet, but his father was down in New York, and he raised my father and his two brothers to believe you couldn't live unless you took worm killer once or twice in the spring. So when we came along, we got worm killer. And the tablets were very, did you get those? Big pink thing? But all I could think was all these worms crawling inside of me. And I wasn't at all happy about this situation. But anyway, here they were, a few of them were killed. Corn plasters. They took care of their feet, and he sold corn plasters. Corn killer. And that was quite a thing to get. Now, Schenk's syrup. I don't know if that was a cough medicine or a tonic or just alcohol dressed up, but they sold a lot of Schenk's syrup. And magic oil. How could you live without magic oil? I think it cured everything. Very cheap. That's right, that's right. Epicash for those crying babies, cod liver oil. Now, I told you they ate lots of cheese, so they sold lots of castor oil. Tompkins, cough lozenges, porous plasters. And this was a new one too. We see the tonic and Trocus, and the ladies seem to buy those. Then this also supplied all of their cosmetic needs. Hair dye. There were 3 ladies and 1 man who bought hair dye. This I don't know. I bought it, but apparently they didn't. Then they sold a lot of condition powder, but I never found out what condition powder conditioned. So I don't know what they're putting over on it. Bay rum. And Lyons Party, Lyons. One lady bought a package of that, and she wasn't happy and brought it back and got her money back. Then perfume. And this, you know, these people became my family, and I was thinking about it. And this man bought perfumery, a bottle of perfumery. And I hope so much that that was his girlfriend or his wife. Now, the stuff was 50 cents a bottle. So I guess, I hope it was the girlfriend's. The wife needed better than that. 1 bottle of Florida boy was sold. So you see, I got a good slant on the family, and that is what you get from this book when you look that over. Now, I'm going to read certain excerpts from it, and if we have time there, I'd like to read the Christmas one to you, but the weather is not conducive to that, so if you get uncomfortable, let me know. Now, on August the 13th, and I think I'm going to sit down, Mrs. W. Tompkins bought 2 vegetable dishes for $2, 1 round dish for 60 cents. One gravy bowl for 25. If you found those in the antique shops today, you couldn't touch them for less than 25 cents. 2 pickle dishes for 50 cents. 1 platter for 75 and 1 platter for $1.15. Now this is August the 13th. You suppose someone of her family is getting married? I hope so. Wouldn't that be nice? Her entire cost was $5.35. On August the 14th, A. Coon bought 1 bottle of worm killer for kids. August the 15th, Ira Miller, and I hope I strike some of your relatives, because I said only good things. Ira Miller bought 1 pair of shoes, $2.12. We were looking at shoes up at Caldwell's for $40. And 1 pair of socks for 18 cents. Henry Miller bought 1 necktie for 25 cents. Phil Potts paid a bill, and the reason I noted this, with a check from G.F. Stickles. Now, they didn't get many checks, but when they did, they always noted who the check was from. Always. You could follow it that way. Polly E. Lasher, and Helen, that's my Polly. I'm with,
Polly that has a store at North Germantown.
yeah, and Helen and I can't figure out why he or she went down and did her purchasing in the Germantown store. Well, she returned a bottle of Lime's Pop. They weren't fooling her. She was a very wise woman, wasn't she, Helen?
Dealing and dealing. She was borrowing money, she was lending money, mortgages and notes, and she handled it all very well.
Yeah, I would like to have known
As well
her.
as handling her store.
Now, Hicks and Sheldon paid a bill, and this got, they paid their bill with $758, valued at $15.63. Can you imagine counting the eggs? Yeah. But at the time it must have taken to count those eggs. Well, anyway. and that brings up a point. Maybe he counted them each night. See, they were wise fellows. Now, I think when I read that, there was a minister, and Helen wasn't Wychoff, Reverend Wychoff in the Reformed Church? Or was that the Lutheran?
We were going to.
Yeah, no.
I think he was.
Yeah, no. Well, anyway, on his Christmas dealings, and I think he was alone at that time, he needed an egg, so he bought one egg. Well, to get back here, Ed Miller bought a pair of earrings for 50 cents. James L. Fingar bought a pair of overalls for 75. On December 10th, Alex Fisher, now I watched poor Alex Fisher because I don't know him, he's no relation that I know of, but I don't think he was very well. His purchase was 4 porous plasters for $1, 1 seaweed tonic for $1.25, and 1 Schenk's syrup for $1. And later on, we're going to get another one, and he's going to try some more medicine. Not a healthy man at all. Yeah, and he did. No, I wanted you to get the idea of how much they could buy for a small sum of money. This purchase was made September the 4th by Robert Moore. Now, he had 4 yards of flannel, 4 yards of calico, 2 spools of thread, and incidentally, I want to stop there. I paid $1.49 for a spool of cotton thread. She got 2 spools for 14 cents. 1 yard of elastic, 6 cents. 2 yards of ribbon, 12 cents. 1½ dozen buttons, 12 cents. 1 can of baking powder, 20 cents. 4 yards of muslin, 60 cents. 1 gallon of molasses, and 1 peck of Timothy seed for 94. The total bill was $5. And to get back to that gallon of molasses, I don't know how she missed it, but they generally picked up either a ½ gallon or a gallon of kerosene. And that takes me back to what I remember when I first came to Germantown. You brought the kerosene lamps down in the morning and laid them on the back table, and the woman had to wash the chimney and fill them and trim the wick and get them ready for the night. And sometimes they had 8 and 10 of those little things to do. But as I went through this, they must have smashed them right and left because they were forever buying chimneys. So I suppose they'd knocked them over or something. Well, Louis E. Dick bought 1 bottle of vinegar, but if he couldn't get the vinegar, he would take the bottle of bitters as a substitute. September the 5th, Frank Smith paid the balance on his bottle of perfume. His balance was 40 cents. Now, as I went back there, it was 55 cents for the whole thing. And he had to charge 40 cents on that. Well, I hope they appreciate it. On September the 7th, William Olmsted, and I don't know if there's any of that family, but they were very important in this little store. Oh, they are? Yeah. Well, they bought good stuff. Now, the wife in that family must have been a wonderful sewer. 11 yards of calico. She's probably making a quilt. But 11 yards of calico cost her $1.32. Then she had 10 yards of muslin, $1.25, and that must have been the back. Now, I'm conjecturing on these things. I sit and think of these poor souls, and I'm reliving their lives for them. One pair of hose, 22 cents. One spool of thread, and no matter how much sewing they did, they only bought their thread by one spool at a time, 7 cents. 2 sacks of salt, 28. 20 pounds of sugar, 2.30. And 2 pounds of sugar. Now they do this all the time. There is a cheaper sugar, which they buy when they buy the good sugar. I don't know whether they mix them. In one place it said, and 2 pounds of yellow sugar. So maybe they mix them together. That would have been, I don't know what the reason was. Now, one round scallop dish, 55 cents. One potato dish, 56. One paper of pins, 10 cents. And she paid A. Warner what she owed her, $1.50. Her whole bill was $8.40. It's just unbelievable, the difference in the money here. On September the 8th, Ephraim Lasher. Now, I put this in here for a very personal reason. This is my husband's grandfather, and no monkey business on his order. Also, he is very good in the Lutheran Church. He does all the purchasing for them. But this time it's just Ephraim's. Now, I read his diary, and he always paid his bills in pins. And I thought, gee, they must have been making these pins over there in order to sell this, to use it as money. Well, come to find out, further on, there's another order for Ephraim Lasher and his Dutchman. And the Dutchman was a tailor, and he was doing all the sewing. So that's that. Half a bushel of Timothy seed, 1 pound of tobacco, 1 pound of coffee, 4 yards of jeans. Now that's what they made their overalls out of. Now the next one is, your guess as good as mine, 1.5 pounds of Wiggins. And Helen, we didn't get the Wiggins straightened out, did we? W-I-G-G-A-N. I don't know what that is, but it's very cheap because he got 1.5 pounds of it for 30 cents. 2 yards of calico for 22, 1.5 dozen buttons for 19, 1 skein of yarn for 33, 2 sheets of wadding, and I think that's the filling for the quilt. 1 spool of cotton thread, 1 skein of linen for 12 cents, and 2 boxes of collars. Now, you will find these collars turning up. They're 6 in a box. So that's 25 cents a piece. And I think they're those stiff collars that you pull around and tie or put on with a button, collar button.
My father used to have a special box, round box to keep the collars in.
Yes.
Is that so?
Kind of like the box, the ones I've seen, kind of like an angel food thing. They have this ring.
Nice and warmed. And also, I find every once in a while they got to buy a new collar button. It's 25 cents, and I guess they must lose it. I don't know. Well, yeah, that could be. Now, this next one is very interesting. It's purchased on October the 6th. It's purchased by John P. Miller. And he's going to repaper a room. I believe it's in this case, the room was his son's. And they decided to repaper. He needed 12 rolls of paper. And he needed 15 yards of border. Now, his 12 rolls of paper cost 10 cents a roll. 10 cents a roll. And his border, the 15 yards, cost 1 cent a yard. It's it just makes you think, doesn't it? Now,
that's what I was thinking too. What would it sell
Yeah.
in those years?
I would figure about $3 a day.
Well, you see, it's sort of low even since.
Oh yes, oh yes. But I like their figures. I love to go shopping with them. Now, this is Philip H. Rockefeller Jr. Do I have any relatives here tonight? Would you like to hear what he bought? 2 pounds of coffee, 1/4 pound of cinnamon, 1 pound of starch, 1 bottle of castor oil, tacks, 1 cake of chocolate, 1 ounce of nutmeg, 4 balls of yarn, 1 3/4 of calico, 1 pound of cake, 2 pounds of crackers, 2 cans of lobster, and stove polish. Now we're going back here. The 2 pounds of crackers, they're 10 cents a pound. And I would dearly love to know if they really are not crackers, they're cookies. And they used to sell them in large glass cases in front of the bread. And I remember, see, we used to visit my grandmother who lived in the country. And I thought that was the greatest thing to go over and decide which one of those we could have. Now, they were only 10 cents. But the cookies were this big. And you could have molasses cookies, sugar cookies, oatmeal cookies, and the whole row. Now, a child 5 or 6 years old could spend an awful lot of time. He wished he had this, but he liked this. And maybe this was the better buy. And my mother was doing all the shopping. So she got rid of us. But they were very careful about their stoves. They used a lot of stove polish. Now, on December the 11th, Isaac Rockefeller bought 2 pounds of blasting powder, 28 cents, and 1 fuse, 6 cents. Now, he was either building and blowing out stones or taking out trees. I don't know why he had that. On December the 4th, P.H. Rockefeller bought, oh, this surprised me, bought a ticket for 25 cents. And my question is, what for? He never told us. But they did sell lottery tickets. But the lottery tickets cost $1. So I don't know where he got off with his 25 cents. Now, this kind of puzzled me. Bingham Brothers bought 245 pounds of paper for $7.96. Now, I do know they use that brown paper to close off the windows so that it would be warm. But what would he do with 245 pounds of it? And I don't know what the Bingham Brothers did, so I can't. The man who bought it, Bingham. Well, it's bought by Bingham Brothers, Bingham.
Yes,
Around the country.
Maybe something in the mill.
Yeah, they did several.
No. He doesn't come in again, as far as I've read in the book, so I don't know when
He had
On
enough for his
De-
lifetime.
On December 18th, George Wackerhagen bought one pair of drawers, 75 cents, one necktie, 38, and 2 ounces of tobacco.
He was